Much of Portland has recovered since the recession, and a lot of people have seen their median household incomes go up, with the notable exception of communities of color. They are also disproportionately affected by the criminal justice system. What is the #1 thing you would do as a city commissioner to help people of color prosper in Portland? And we begin with Stuart this time.
Thank you, Laurel. I have spent almost my entire career doing projects for communities of color, from a book for the last mayor to raise graduation rates to 80%. We're working with NAIA with housing and their master plan, to doing an Albina Head Start, to doing a big project for K-8 on the Whitaker School site and 100 units of affordable housing. Invariably, those projects either didn't happen at all or happened a fraction of what the vision was. So what I want to do is get on the city council and make those projects happen, and it starts with schools and housing for communities of color.
Thank you. Loretta Smith.
And I agree with Stuart, because a couple of things. You have to beef up that K through 12 system. And within that system, you have to see who helps communities of color. We know that community-based organizations like NAIA, like Latino Network, like Self-Enhancement, when people work with them, their kids graduate from high school at a higher rate. I've already done it. I've directed resources towards those programs to make sure that kids of color graduate at a higher rate. The second piece is I would continue my summer youth employment program, making sure that kids of color have an opportunity to have an opportunity and they can go on and get jobs in the future. And the third thing is we have to be very, very mindful of recruiting traded sector businesses to come into this community and put them out past 82nd, where communities of color are moving to, so that they can live, work, and play in those communities as well.
Andrea Valderrama.
As a current David Douglas School Board member and as a mom, two things I am very much focused on to make sure that whole families can thrive and prosper economically. One, educational opportunities, and two, job opportunities. We in Oregon have some of the lowest graduation rates in the state, and when we break down in David Douglas, we do see that the majority of those who are not graduating are our Latino boys, our communities of color. So we need to be intentional about making sure that we provide not only an opportunity for them to graduate, but an opportunity to go into a career option afterwards, whether it's a 4-year degree or another degree. That's something that, as a school board member, bringing in that perspective onto the city council to work with all of the school districts in the bounds of the city of Portland is very important to me. In terms of the job piece, one of the things that was so critical for my mom as an SEIU member of a hospital, she was a CNA, was that career trajectory that they provided for her and the impact that it had.
Jump in here, Ann Hardesty.
Thank you for that question. Number one, we have no responsibility in the city council for the school districts. Our job is to make sure that we actually walk our talk. So, for example, we keep having equity programs and diversity programs. If you look at outcomes, they haven't changed at all in 30 years of progressive leadership. We have to actually acknowledge that the police are targeting African American and Latino youth in our community, because when you look at the audit that came out about the gang enforcement unit, there's no excuse that 90% of those stops are of African Americans. I want to work with the police chief to retrain our police department so that they understand that their job is to protect and serve us all, not to actually target any one segment of our community. In addition to that, I will hold the city accountable for the contracts and the outcomes they say they want as far as hiring women and people of color for those contracts.
Thank you. And Felicia Williams.
So there are two ways that the city can really address this. The first one is through housing. So it's taking care of the housing constriction that we have right now in the market. There needs to be more housing coming online. It makes sense. More housing, lower rents. So that's a big element of it. So people are no longer rent burdened. So it's streamlining the process through the Bureau of Development Services. The other element is through the Portland Development Commission, which is now Prosper Portland. They have a lot of different economic programs available for communities of color that they can apply for different grants, rental assistance, and basically support for getting their businesses off the ground. I think that we should continue to bulk up those programs and take care of them. So again, it gets back to housing and economic development. We have the tools at the city to do that.